Hey everyone, this is Alex USA Days, and we're continuing Playwright QA automation. Today we're going to learn how to find selectors. Now, we already did a lot. We're in module 5 right now. In the previous modules, we learned about CodeGen. We created the same code that CodeGen created. We built our own web page to practice during today's lesson. So now let's get into it. Let's understand how we can find elements and add specific selectors to our code. Remember, the basic structure is you have angle bracket and then there's a tag. Then after a tag you have some attribute, and attribute might have some value. Within the tag you can also have multiple attributes, and attributes are like ID or class and so on. Then you have some content that might be text, and then after content you have a closing tag, right? So this is like the very basic framework that you will be working with. Today we will focus on selecting by ID, targets the element by its unique ID, selecting by class for elements with specific class, selecting elements by tag name and class, combining tag and class for unique ID. We will be selecting elements by attribute value for elements with specific attribute values. We will do partial attribute value selection, so elements whose attribute contains specific text. We'll be selecting by text content, so finds elements by their visible text. And we will use some of the Playwright's specific locators. We also will take a look at the documentation where you see the examples of those locators and how to use them. And in the end, we're going to use Ranorex Selocity Chrome plugin to help you get in the selectors if you're having trouble selecting them on your own. All right, let's get into the code. Okay, here we are. This is our clickMe HTML web page. So let's right click it and open with live server so we can have a web page running. And here it is started. And remember, whenever you click on the button, it will add to the counter. Perfect. So copy the address. And then let's go ahead and create new test. So we'll go into test folders, new, and let's do it, call it selectors.spec.js. All right, so the very first thing we're doing is we're importing Playwright. So import, test, and expect. So we will use both of those. From, and within quotes, at Playwright test. Perfect. Now let's create our test. So test.only. This is going to be the only test that we will be running. And let's call this learning selectors. All right. We need to make sure it's async. So we add a sync keyword. And here within parentheses and then within curly braces, we just add page. So the element, the object that will be interacting. And now we need to put an arrow here, open curly braces, and within them, within those curly braces, all of our steps gonna go right here. Okay, so what do we need to do first? The very first thing when we start in the test case, right? We need to navigate to the web page. So let's do navigate to the web page, and we will navigate to the server address that we just launched. So this website right here. So we're gonna grab this, and that's where Playwright gonna go. So await page dot go to, and here in parentheses in quotes provide the address. Okay, perfect. This is our very first step. So now let's talk about selecting elements. The very stable locator is your ID. So the very first will be selecting by ID. You want to select by unique IDs if they're available, because most likely they're not going to change as the web page changes. Unique ID stays the same. So even though details of the element might change, if the ID stays the same, your test is still going to locate it and still going to interact with it, right? So await page.locator, and now we need to select our ID. So let's go here to the page. Let's click inspect. and look at the element. Here's our ID click button. So this is the one we created. So we can keep on looking into the dev tools like that, opening them up and just looking through the element. Or if we want, we can just have our clickMe web page on the right side here and look into the elements right here. So whatever you prefer. I'll probably just be switching between the code and the web page, so it's kind of more closer to the real scenario. You're looking into the actual IDs and elements in the browser. Okay, selected. So hit this arrow to select an element, click on the element. It will open up here the page code. And here's our ID click button. All right, let me just move it a little bit so we can kind of interact with the second both. Overlay them one over another so it's a little bit quicker to switch between them. Something like that. Okay, so page locator, and let's go ahead and copy the locator. Click ID button. And we put it in quotes. And if we select it by ID, when you use an ID, you need to provide a hashtag, just like that. And then do dot click. So we will click on the element based on the ID. Let's add pause. Let's add pause so we know what's happening. So page.pause. After the last step, we're going to pause so it doesn't close the window. We'll see the click actually happening. npx playwright test -- headed. So we will see in actual browser how this is happening. Okay. Another thing how we can do it, instead of doing the pause, we see it clicked one time. It's still happening on the other screen and I have to drag it in. So instead of pausing, you can launch with debug flag. So debug. I think this is debug. This is very useful. If you're writing code and you want to see how it interacts with the page, you can actually click through each step. It's not going to start execution. You kind of manually go through each step when you use debug mode. So npx playwright test -- headed -- debug. Let's start it. Okay, so it opens up Playwright Inspector and it opens up a blank page. And now we can say, hey, go to the step over, move to the next step. So our step that is going to go to is on line 5, you can see, and it's going to go to the page that we created. Here it is, the page is open. The next step, you can see it's clicking on the button based on the locator on the ID click button, and then it's going to press click. And now we have one counter added. Perfect. Okay, so this is the selection by ID. Second is, let's do selecting by class. There are multiple classes that we have, but we will just use one of them. So same thing, we start with await, page.locator, and here within quotes, we need to provide a class. So let's go and find our class. Again, click on the element. So what do we have here? Class button style. So this is the class that we're going to use. Let's copy it. So I double clicked it. It's highlighted the whole thing. Press Ctrl C to copy it. And I go back into the code. Press Ctrl V to paste it. Now, when you're using class, you need to provide dot before the class name. If you use your class in the code, this is indicating, this little dot is indicating that this is a class. Same thing, like this hashtag is indicating that this is an ID. This little dot is indicating that this is a class. Okay, let's run one more time. So now it should click twice. Here it is up. Next step 1, and next step 2. You see it clicked twice, so we have 2 now. Perfect. After selecting by class, let's do by tag name. By tag name, or by tag and class. So you can combine 2. Sometimes classes are used across different elements, and in order to narrow down your search, be more specific, you can add a tag before the class. So it will narrow down your selection. So await page.locator. Here we're going to provide locator and then .click. Okay. So we know our class is button style, so we can just use that. What about a tag? So what tag we have in this element? After the angle bracket, we have a button. So this is a tag, this is opening tag, and this is closing tag at the very end, right? With a forward slash. So we can say button, so a tag name, and then dot button style. So essentially tag and class together. So class, so tag, and then the class. Let's run it. I'm not going to have a debug. I'm just going to run it and head it, and we should see 3 clicks at the very end. Yep, and you can see it's 3. And here's the line that we added, and it stopped at line 16 on pause. Perfect. So the next way how we can search for a selector is by attribute value. So by attribute value. Right? So we need to provide name of the attribute and then the value of attribute within our selector. So await. So same thing. Await page.locator. Click. I'm just gonna take this here and copy paste it so I don't have to type it every time. I'm just gonna copy paste it. All right, let's take a look at our code again. So here's our button. What kind of attribute we can use? So there's a data action attribute, and there is increment as the attribute value, right? So we can use that. By the way, we can use any of the attribute values. We can use class button style, role button. Any of the attributes is going to work, but we can just use data action. So for example, let's do, so you have to put it in square brackets, data action, and then equals and value, because I opened up the locator with single quotes, the value in itself, I will have it in double quotes, increment and open a close square bracket. So if I'll do that, let's run it. Okay, so it's 4, it's 3, have to be 4, so it didn't click it. For some reason, it did not click it. Data action, so let's make sure it's data action. And increment. Make sure there are no typos here. All right, let's see. Okay, the reason why I didn't click it because I forgot to add parentheses after the click method. Let's run one more time. Let's do it with a debug just to make sure. Okay, here we are. First step, we're at the page. Clicking once, clicking twice, clicking 3 times. Okay, here's our last one by attribute value. So data action increment, click it 4 times. You see the 4 is selected. But interesting enough, I mean, everything here is essentially attribute and value, even class and ID. So I can say ID, and then with an ID, click button, or I can say class and button style. Okay, let's run one more time. not the lick button, but the click button. Okay, cancel this one more time. All right, first step, first click, second click, third click, click number 4. Okay, so it did by data action increment. So attribute name, attribute value. Now by ID, click button. Now by class, button style. So essentially, even the ID, this thing, and the class, this thing, they all are attributes, right? We have attribute values specifically for the elements that we cannot target like this easily, or through the dot, or through the hashtag. Like, there's an ID, you can tag by ID. There's a class, you can tag by a class. But you can still tag the same elements. You can reach them through attribute name, attribute value combination, like here. See it? That is not common. Like, if you have an ID, you want to use something like that, but it is still possible. Okay. All right, let's do number 5. And 5, we will have partial attribute. Like, this is helpful if you want to search by some part of the value. If you can't provide the whole one, you want to just make sure there's a match, and you can search by some sort of a partial match. So let's copy this, await page locator. And for the partial search, you can do, so say we're going to search by role, and the role in double quotes. What's the role here we have? So the role is button, right? So attribute name is role, attribute value is button. But let's say I don't want to search by a button, I want to search by a but, right? So this will fail. It's not going to find it. There's no role but. But if I will put here an asterisk, so Shift 8 at the end of the role, now it will search by any match. If any of the elements have but in it, then it will click on it. And you can see it. Let's do a debug. Okay. So next step, next step, next step. And here we're at step 5. So locator role but. You can see it's highlighted. Let's do step over, and it's been clicked. Perfect. Number 6, by text content. So you can search by text within the element. So the text here would be, if we take a look at our clickMe button. So the text is actually right here, right? ClickMe is the text. This, what is visible to the user, this text, ClickMe, you can search by that. By text visible to the user, or by text content, right? So again, await page.locator, and here let's provide the text. So all you really need to do is type text and then equals ClickMe. So there are no additional quotes. You open up quote, you close quote. So text equals ClickMe. Let's run it. Now we should have 6 clicks at the end. And I forgot to add function at the end. Okay, let's one more time. Yep, we got 6. So our 6 clicks are here. Click number 6 is by the text content. So it found that ClickMe text and it clicked on it. Next one, let's do combining selectors for precision. So combine selectors for precision. We already did something like that where we combined tag and a class. So let's combine selectors for precisions. So let's say class and text. So that's going to be a little bit different. Again, we're doing await page.locator, and over here, so we want to do button style. So this is our class. We're selecting by class, and how we can narrow it down. So we can put colon and then say text, and now within parentheses in double quotes, you provide text. So click me. Right. Let's run this with a debug. I keep on forgetting to add parentheses at the end. All right, let's one more time. Clear. Because I know what I know why I keep on forgetting to add it, because I never copied it. Okay. Here we are. So the click number 7 will be our last click by combining the class and text, right? Visiting page, first click, second, third, number 4, number 5, number 6. Here's our click number 7. So it found button style class and then text click me inside. And right, perfect, it clicked on it. All right, so the next one we will have, number 8, we'll have has text. Here we used text, so colon text. This is to find exact text match. There's another way of searching by text, and it is called has text, right? So has text is a little bit more flexible. It supports partial match, and it is case insensitive by default. And you can search element containing certain text with has text versus the text. So this is a little bit more flexible, right? Find elements containing specific text, right? So there are two ways: one through text, other one has text. So same thing, await page locator dot click, and what are we going to search for? Well, we can search for a button. So let's do tag button and then use has text. So for that, we will say tag, so button. That's our tag, right? And then here again, colon, and we say has text, and we provide the same parentheses, within parentheses in double quotes, we say click me, right? Or let's say click M. Let's see what happens. So partial text. Let's see if how's that gonna work. Okay, so we're at number 7, 6, 7, and 8. So has text click M. Even though the text is click me with all capital letters, it still found click M. So the partial match was enough for it to click. So you can see has text is a little bit more flexible in match. So text is exact match. This is exact. This is partial. All right, click me. All right, great. And let's do number 9. Let's do attribute and text. Why we're paying so much attention to the text? Well, sometimes you might have an element that is hard to pick. You have to kind of play around with it. So doing a combination of elements, maybe not the best solution, but if it works for the moment, this is might be the only way how you're going to reach the element, right? So attribute and text combination. So await page locator click. What attribute we're going to use? Well, we had an attribute here, data increment. So let's grab that. And let's say text click me. So before we did combination here on line 26, we did combination of class and text. Here we're doing attribute and text combination. right? Text clickMe. Let's run it. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and the last one is 9, so it found it. And step over. All right, click 9 times. Perfect. Now we're gonna talk. Let's talk about a little bit about Playwright Locators. So 10 is Playwright Locators. It is important for you to use Playwright documentation and learn how to refer to the Playwright documentation, because it's going to be a lot easier to go through documentation if you don't know something, to search and read and figure things out on the spot. Like if you're stuck, Playwright provides amazing documentation. So let's go to the docs, and here let's search for locators. Locators. Locating elements. Here we are. So there's a quick guide on locators. We're not going to use all of them, but Playwright suggests that you use locators where possible, the built-in one, this list first, and then if you can't select through the built-in Playwright locators, then you go to using locator and then specific element selection. So then you go to using this variation. Generally speaking, what you want to do is first selecting by ID. So you have an ID, you can use your ID with page locator and then hashtag ID as your first, the most stable selector. If that is not available, if you have then text, classes, all of that stuff, but you can do selection by built-in selectors first, so through these, so use these, okay? And there are a couple examples here, so I'm gonna copy this link, and you should copy this link, and let's put it here at comment on line 34. Let's add the address here, so we know where to search for the Playwright locators. Okay, so here is, for example, by text, right? So we already did by text, but there is a built-in locator or selector, same thing, in Playwright. So if you click on it, it will actually give you an example. Very, very good example. So here's welcome John text. Here's a tag span, right? Then there's a content, and then here's a closing tag span. And how you locate it, or how Playwright located this element, it just said, okay, page get by text, welcome John. So it just went through to the text and got it. It's doing assertion here, so doing to be visible. We're not doing the to be visible assertion, we're just going to be clicking on it. So for us, let's actually copy this line right here. Go to our Playwright. Let's here do get by text, right? How the Playwright wants it. And I'm just going to copy, paste it here. So I don't need expect, so I'm going to say page get by text, and to be visible, I need to remove that and just add dot click. Okay, so what is the text? Well, in our case, the text on the button is click me. Yep, get by this text. All right, let's run it. So that is going to be click number 10. Let's step over in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And here's the last one. So get by text click me. You can see it's already selected. It's waiting for the actual click action. Step over and it's clicked. Perfect. All right. Again, I'm not going to show you all of them. Take time, go through the documentation, and try to experiment with all of those locators by yourself with the web page if it's possible to do them. I'm just going to grab a couple from here. And when you read through the locator, make sure you click on it because it gives you particular examples. Like here, for example, by ID, it says, well, there has to be a specific ID. So you can't just use ID like this one, ID click button, because by default, it's looking for a test ID. And the test ID, the name of the attribute is data-test ID. So it has a specific test ID, that it's looking for. And the test ID attribute is defined in a config, right? So if you want to change it, you can change it through the config. See? So it's very critical when you refer to documentation to actually click on things, right, and read about them, not just grabbing through here. Hey, here's a quick guide. Let me just use by text and then or use by ID, and wondering why it's not working. Actually, click on it, read about it, the selection method, see the examples, and understand how it is implemented. So, like, if I want to use a different ID, not the default one, the attribute name for the ID, I have to go to the config and add this line right here. So change the test attribute to whatever you use in your team, right? Okay, so practice them on your own. Let's grab number 11, so by role. We're gonna use by role as the last one. By role, quick guide. Here's by role, the very first one. Let's click on it. So, for example, here, role checkbox. So input type checkbox, by role button with specific text. So it also grabs the text, and you can use a regex here. It's using regex to grab the text instead of the quotes, right? Okay, so for us, let's get by role button. So we have role here button. So let's grab that. And we can also say there is a specific text in it, specific name for that role, right? Here it's saying submit, but we have clickMe. So I'm just gonna copy this line and let's update it. So await get by role. So role is button, but instead of submit, we can say clickMe. And this is regex expression again. Very useful to do like partial searches and partial matches with regex. If you go to regex 101 and you want some regex to see what it is, what it's doing, you just grab it. So let me grab this one and then paste it. And it tells you what it does. So clickMe matches the character. clickMe literally case insensitive. So the I here is saying case insensitive, right? Ignores cases A, Z, capital lower. All right, perfect. So let's get back to the code and see. Let's run it. So we should have total of 11 clicks now. One, two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And here's the last one. So by role button and by name, or essentially text in the button, click me. Dot click 11. Perfect. We got 11 clicks on the page. Very nice. So last thing, what can we do to kind of finalize this exercise? Like, let's just assert that in the end, we have 11 clicks in the counter, right? So let's assert the counter. So we do await, expect, and here within the expect, we need to provide what we're looking at. So page dot locator. What is the locator for the counter? Let's open up our web page. Inspect it. So we can just use the ID. So counter, right? Locator in quotes hashtag counter, and our assertion to be to contain text, and the text here is 11, right? That's how we stop. That's going to be last step, asserting that we went through all those clicks and it went, the counter went up to 11. Let's run it without a debug. It's going to pause execution at the, let me pause it twice. So before the assertion and at the very end. Let's run it. Okay, so it is at 11. We're paused right here before assertion. If I'll go to the next step, it's gonna assert that it is 11. Assertion successful. Expect contains text. You see a little check mark here. This looks good. Okay, so what are other ways to look for locators? Okay, so the first way is to inspect, then and then you inspect, and so inspect. You have DevTools open, then you click on a select element, click on the element, then you read through the line and see, what is a good stable locator here to grab for your test, right? The second way how you can do it, when you're in debug mode or you're in pause and you have your Playwright Inspector up, there is Pick Locator button right here. So you can click on that and then go through the elements and it will pick a locator for you. The only thing is with picking locator, you can see that here it suggests by name clickMe, for example, right? Get by role button name clickMe. That is fine, but here it suggests by text 11, right? But the problem is getting by text 11, I click next time it's going to be 12, and if my whole locator is just based on the text value that is continuously changing, test is going to fail, right? So it's not always the best option. I mean, the best locators for you are the ones that you create that are based on IDs and stuff like that, that are stable. But this is a good tool if you just kind of want a quick locator pick and see. You have to still double check if it's going to be stable or not. So clickMe will be stable here. This get by text 11 will not be stable here at all, right? The one it suggests. Now, the last one that you can use, and I use it a lot, is a plugin. So go to extensions, manage extensions in Chrome, and I'm going to remove it and then search for it. It's called Ranorex. Okay, no extension. So let's go here. It has a little Chrome Web Store link. So click on that, and here search for Ranorex Selocity. Select that, add to Chrome, add extension, and once it's added, you see this little symbol right here at the top. Ranorex Selocity has been added. Now, when you're at the web page, there is a styles tab here in elements. Right, you go to elements, there's styles. If you expand it all the way, you will see Ranorex Selocity. You can move it to be the first one, the tab right here now. I can now left click and do selector actions, copy CSS. We're not going to talk about XPath. I'm going to briefly explain what it is, but Playwright is based around and suggests around getting your selectors with CSS, not XPath. All right, so I can do copy CSS, and you see it created a locator for me, button, hashtag click button. So it used tag and it used the ID. And then search for it, and it says found 1 out of 1. And it also gives you some other suggestions for it. So 2 different CSSs, 1 XPath, 1 relative XPath, and they all show 1. That means there's only 1 match. It's a unique locator, a unique selector, and that's what you want for your pick. So let's right click on the number here, the counter, and do selector actions, copy CSS, and it selected div counter. So again, it used tag div, right? This right here, div, and then it used counter ID. It's pretty stable selector, found 1, and it also gives you some other options. Okay. Now there is another way, and I'm going to talk about it really briefly, so you're just aware of it, and maybe if there's a need, you can use it. XPath locators. This was and still pretty popular way of using selectors by XPath. And then there is a warning. So we recommend prioritizing user visible locators like text or accessible role instead of using XPath. So you have to, I think, because it's discouraged, like if you don't need to use XPath, like if you can get a stable locator by CSS or built-in selectors, do it. If there's absolute need, you can do it by XPath. XPath, you can see it's like going through directories. So XPath stands for XML Path Language. It uses a non-XML syntax to provide a flexible way of addressing pointing to different parts of XML document. It can be used to test addresses nodes within document, determine whether they match pattern or not. There is more read on XPath on W3 Schools and on MTN. But essentially, you can look at your DOM, your document. This is your DOM. All this stuff, document, or this document, and you can look at it as a tree, a catalog of directories, right? The places you can go. So by using XPath, you can reach those places, right? So if we go back to the clickMe button, I'm going to use Ranorex, select XPath, and you see it starts at the very root of your page, and it starts with HTML. So at the very top, at this tag, then it does // it searches for a button. Then from HTML, it goes inside and then finds a button. And then in the button, you have @ID equals click button. So you can see it's different structure than CSS, and essentially it is like going through your file system and providing the path within the DOM, within the document object model, to the locator. Now, it is discouraged to use XPath with Playwright. You better rely on CSS, or even better, if not CSS, built-in Playwright locators. Okay, so here is our code. Hopefully, you typed it along the video. If not, take a moment, pause the video, type it aloud, run it. Let's do a run through, maybe last one, run through. So we can click through all of those elements. I'm going to remove all the pauses. I'll remove this comment that it's not necessary. Okay, save it. And let's do npx playwright -- headed -- debug. And let's run it. Okay, here's our inspector window. Here's our browser. So step over. So the first step, we go to the web page. Next step, we click once, click twice, by tag and class 3 times, by attribute value 4 times, by partial attribute. So this is with asterisk. We're searching by but 5, by text content. So just by clickMe 6, combining class and text. Number is going to be 7. Now by containing specific text 8, by attribute and text combination. So attribute data action increment with text clickMe 9, by Playwright Selectors by get by text clickMe 10, and then by role, so role button with the name clickMe text inside of it is 11. So we got 11 counters. We clicked clickMe button 11 times using 11 different methods, 11 different selectors. And the very last step is to assert that the counter has text 11. Step over, and we'll get a pass. Well, that's it. Congratulations. Now you know locators, and I'll see you in the next video. This was Alex USA Days, and bye-bye.